You are doing something completely ordinary, folding laundry, scrolling your phone, eating a sandwich, and then you feel it. That feeling, the one that makes you slowly look up. Your baby is staring at you, not glancing, not looking, staring, with those huge round eyes that do not blink, that do not waver, that do not move, locked onto your face with the focused intensity of a small scientist studying a specimen. And you know the feeling that follows, because every parent on earth has felt it. You feel slightly judged by a person who cannot speak, who cannot walk, who cannot eat solid food, and yet somehow, in this moment, seems to be reading you. Most parents assume the baby is just curious, or fascinated by faces, or zoning out, and those answers are not wrong. But they are also not even close to what is actually happening, because the neuroscience of that stare reveals something that will change how you understand not just your baby, but consciousness itself. Let us start with what most people believe. Babies stare because faces are visually interesting, high contrast, symmetrical, lots of motion. The eyes especially are visually engaging because they have dark pupils against light sclera, which catches an infant's developing visual system. So they stare because faces are eye candy for a brain that is learning how to see. And again, this is not wrong. But it does not explain the depth of what is happening. Because if babies were simply attracted to visual stimulation, they would stare equally at any high contrast pattern. A checkerboard, a spinning fan, a black and white poster on the wall. They do not. Researchers have demonstrated this repeatedly. When given a choice between an inanimate visual stimulus and a live human face, even newborns just hours old will turn their head toward the face, not toward the higher contrast image, not toward the brighter object, toward the face, specifically toward eyes. In a landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers showed that newborns prefer face-like patterns over scrambled versions of the same patterns within the first few hours of life. Before they have learned anything, before they have seen their own mother, their visual system arrives pre-tuned to find faces. And this preference is not just about looking, it is about extraction. The baby brain is doing something specific to faces that it does not do to anything else in the visual environment. And to understand what that something is, we need to look at where the staring happens inside the brain. In 2013, a team led by Tobias Grossmann at the Max Planck Institute did something remarkable. They had 5-month-old infants engage in real social interactions while their brain activity was being measured with non-invasive imaging. This was not the typical screen experiment. This was live. The infant looked at a real partner. The partner sometimes looked back. The brain activity was tracked through every moment of mutual gaze, and what they found rewrote our understanding of what babies are doing when they stare. During mutual gaze, when the baby and the social partner were looking directly at each other, the prefrontal cortex of the infant lit up with activity, specifically the areas associated with social cognition. The same regions that, in adults, are activated when we are reading other people's minds, inferring intentions, tracking emotional states, the most sophisticated social cognition humans are capable of. In a 5-month-old, the baby, while staring at the partner, was running adult-level social processing. Not because the baby is consciously thinking about you, but because the infant brain has dedicated neural machinery designed specifically for this exact moment, and it activates the second eye contact is established. But this is where it gets extraordinary. Because Grossmann's study showed activation in the baby's brain. A separate body of research has shown something even more remarkable. The baby's brain is not just activating during mutual gaze, it is synchronizing with yours. Researchers have used dual brain monitoring, where 2 participants wear caps simultaneously, to measure the brain activity of caregivers and infants during real-time interaction. The findings are stunning. During moments of mutual gaze, specific frequency bands in the adult's brain and the infant's brain begin to oscillate in coordinated patterns. Theta waves, alpha waves, they start to align. This synchronization does not happen during averted gaze. It does not happen when the baby is looking at an object instead of you. It only happens during direct mutual gaze, the moment of eye-to-eye contact. Your baby is not staring at your face, they are tuning into your brain through their eyes. And here is the part that will reframe how you see every staring moment for the rest of your parenting life. In 2018, a research team led by Niedzwiecka and colleagues, published in the journal Child Development, tracked 55 mother-infant pairs over time. They measured the total duration of mutual gaze during free play interactions when the infants were 5 months old. Then, 6 months later, when those same infants were 11 months old, the researchers measured something different. They measured the infant's attention control, the ability to disengage attention from one stimulus and shift it to another, a foundational cognitive skill. The result was remarkable. Infants who had engaged in more mutual gaze at 5 months had significantly better attention control at 11 months, 6 months later. From staring. Each staring session is a workout for the developing attention system. And like any workout, the effects accumulate. So let us trace what the science is showing. When your baby stares at you, 3 things happen simultaneously. First, their prefrontal cortex activates. The most sophisticated parts of their developing brain come online specifically in response to your face. Second, their brain begins to synchronize with yours. The two of you become a temporarily coupled neural system. Third, oxytocin is released in both brains. This is the bonding hormone, the same chemistry that creates lifelong attachment. All of this happens in the moment that feels like your baby is just staring at you slightly judgmentally while you eat a sandwich. And there is a final layer that brings the whole picture into focus. Research has shown that infants do not just stare at faces in general. They preferentially stare at faces that are looking back at them. Why? Because the infant brain has a category called ostensive signals. These are signals that say, a communication is being directed at you. Direct eye contact is the most powerful ostensive signal in the human social repertoire. And when the infant brain detects it, a switch flips. The brain enters a heightened learning state. Your baby stares at you not because you are interesting. Your baby stares at you because their brain has identified you as the source of all the information they need to become a person. So I want you to think about this for a moment. The next time your baby stares at you with that disconcerting intensity, the next time you feel slightly examined by a small person who cannot yet speak, I want you to know what is actually happening. Their brain is doing the most sophisticated work it will do all day. They are running the most advanced social cognition their nervous system is capable of. They are synchronizing their brain rhythms to yours. They are flooding their system with bonding chemistry. And they are doing all of it through your eyes. This means something important. When you look back, when you hold your baby's gaze for 1 extra second instead of returning to your phone, when you let yourself be examined by those huge, unblinking eyes, you are not wasting time. You are participating in the construction of a human brain. There is a culture out there that says babies do not need much engagement in the early months, that they cannot really see you anyway, that you can prop them up in front of a screen and they will be fine. The neuroscience says exactly the opposite. The first months are when the staring matters most, when the prefrontal cortex is most plastic, when mutual gaze does the most foundational work. Now, I need to tell you about the distinction that matters. Just as in the previous video about babies who stop crying, there is a pattern worth knowing. Most babies, by around 6 months of age, are deeply engaged in mutual gaze. They lock onto faces, they follow gaze. This is the typical, expected beautiful pattern of social brain development. But pediatric researchers have identified that consistent reduced engagement in mutual gaze, especially in infants over 6 months, can be one of the early behavioral signals associated with neurodevelopmental differences. This does not mean a baby who looks away is anything but normal. Every baby is unique. But early identification matters. Intervention in the first year produces results that intervention later cannot replicate. If you notice that your baby consistently avoids eye contact, does not engage in mutual gaze even during calm interactions, that is worth a conversation with your pediatrician. Trust your observations. You know your baby. That conversation is never wasted. So the next time your baby locks onto your face with that intense, unblinking stare, remember what you just learned. They are not zoning out. They are running the most sophisticated neural processing their brain is capable of. They are tuning their developing nervous system to yours. They are building the attention systems that will carry them through life. 2 pairs of eyes, looking at each other, building a person. If this changed how you see those staring moments, subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment below. Does your baby do this? That intense, unblinking stare that makes you feel like you are being studied?